Hi there, welcome to video number 5 in a sequence of videos I'm doing looking at using Axis and Ohs in a slightly different way. What I'm trying to do is to use templates more, so that I make a template for each of the pieces of avionics and the cockpit and various other bits and pieces. Then when I come to develop an aircraft that's got the same equipment, I can just pick up those templates, one for the GPS, one for the transponder, and build a cockpit much more quickly. It might need a few little tweaks, but it should speed up the development. So this is the 5th one, looking at the transponder. And I also want to use the Microsoft input events. It's kind of a new way of sending commands and getting animations working, which is very effective. So this one's the transponder. What I'll do is I'll link all of the videos for this sequence together, so you'll see me developing. It's the Cessna 172 I'm working on this time, and it's the one that's got the Garmin 530, so it's what people call the steam gauge version, not the glass cockpit version. Hopefully I will do a video on that in a couple of weeks' time and get that sorted as well. But the techniques are pretty much the same. It's really about techniques rather than a step-by-step follow me completely guide. So this is where we are. We've done the 530, we've done the 430, we've done the autopilot. We're now working our way down the stack here, and we're in this transponder. And it's really quite simple to set up. It's a bunch of push buttons here which gives the digits, an ident button, clear to clear your current input, and a shortcut to the VFR code, the 7000 code. They're really easy to set up, and we'll show you those. This one here, it's not a rotary switch as such, it's a multi-position switch. These are different contacts behind it here that detect which mode you're going to be in for your transponder. So that's the slightly more difficult one to set up, but again it's really not hard. So if we just get into the cockpit and into Axis and Ohs, and you can see what we're going to set up. Just in terms of the plan, the layouts, I'm programming them into my X-Touch Mini, the Behringer X-Touch Mini, and I'm going to put it onto layer B. Layer B I use for functions that I don't use very often in flight, that really, once you've got a squawk code, you set it in and it stays with you for the rest of the flight. You're not going to be using it frequently. So I leave that on layer B. So if I bring in my actual camera here, this is layer here, this is layer B, this is how we switch between them. So anything that's on layer B I label underneath the buttons, so it's these kind of flesh coloured buttons, this sort of beige colour that we're going to be programming in. So really very, very simple. I'm using a couple of filters here. The first filter you could use is really navcom, and that will get you to the local, so these Microsoft input events which you want to use, but it's got all the different devices that come under the navcom heading, so I'm going to narrow it down to the transponder. So I've just increased the filter a tiny bit, and I want to use transponder 0, the digit 0, so just double click on that and we just allocate it by making sure we're in layer B and pressing that button there, click on add, and that's done. And I'll do the same again for the digit 1. We just go in filter, transponder 1, and press the button. So we're just going to go across and do all the other digits, but I'll pause the recording while I do that. You don't need to see that repeated over and over again. Okay, so you're rejoining us just as I'm about to put in the digit 7. Exciting stuff. And the other buttons are pretty much the same, so we can put in the ident button, IDT, ident, that's allocated here. and then the clear button. And the last one is the VFR shortcut. And really that now just brings us on to this rotary, this multi-position switch. Now if you go into the input events here, you can see there is one here for the transponder mode, and that's sending a 1. So it's quite tempting to just allocate that to the right term. Click on add. Then if we test that, we'll rotate that. You can see it's gone from off to standby. If I turn it again, nothing happens. What's happening is it is sending a 1 every time, but what we want it to do is to send a 2. It's going to this mode, 3, 4. So there's a variable behind here. And it's not incrementing that variable, it's just sending a 1 every time. In fact, if I go into the transponder mode, and if I set that to 0 now, and we'll change that to the opposite rotation, click on save, this time it's going to send a 0, and you'll see it puts it into the off mode. So we do need a small amount of script behind this one to make it work. I've already written the script, so I'll show you how I wrote them in a second. But what I've done here is I've used this manage script groups here to create a group for, like a folder for my the transponder here for the 172, and it's really just got 2 scripts, one for the increment, one for the decrement, the decrease. I'll show you what the script looks like, and then I'll show you a quick way of getting it put in. So for any of these input events, there is a variable behind it that you can access. So what this says is find the current mode and add 1 to it. This is how the reverse Polish notation, the RPN, works. Get your 2 values, and then what's the function? What do I have to do to it? So find the current mode and the 1, add the 2 together, and then write it back into the variable, and that's how that will work. So what I've done is I've create the script group, create the code, and then choose which group to put it in, give it a name, and save it. What I'll do is I'll just empty that, and I'll show you how I actually enter it. You won't find that variable, unfortunately, in the variables. It just doesn't come up for us. If we go into here, it will show us the local variables, the LVARs, and it doesn't always show this unless you've used it. Once you've used it, it comes up. So if it's not in there, what you can do is go into the sim events and pull it from here, and this will work reliably every time. So that's the event to put it in, and what we can do is we can just do a bit of copying and pasting. So I'll copy that and paste it into here and just adjust this. So we've got it back to find the value, add 1 to it, and write it back into the code, and that will work. So I'll just go through that again. If you haven't yet used the variable, it won't appear. They kind of get generated for you. But if you've turned buttons and things like that, you could find it in here. So you could just double click that and use that as the variable. If the variable is not available, but you know what the event is, you can pull it from the events list and just put it in, and then just save it. So just you can see the script sort of in close up. I'll use it in the PowerPoint presentation here. So this here, that's the increase version, and this is the decrease version, and the only difference between them is you're going to have the minus sign, the takeaway here. So it's find the current mode and subtract 1 from it and write it back in. So that gives you the decrease script. So I've already got those in there, so I'm now going to allocate those. So if I type in my, that filters it down, because I always start my groups with my, and try to start my scripts with my as well, so it finds it. Okay, so I want to use the expander, increase, and I'm going to turn this to the right, click add, and that's in there. And then we do the same for the decrease one. Decrease is going to go anti-clockwise. Click on add, and then we should test that. So as we turn this, we should see the mode increasing and decreasing. So I can step between the different modes, and we should test some of the buttons. So we just put in a squawk code. Interesting, the 4 didn't work, so let's have a look at what's going on with my 4. We'll just click that again. And you should go through and test them all. We'll test the clear button, and we'll test the VFR button, and we'll test the ident. That definitely moved. So we can see that that's all programmed up. It's so easy to, when doing something repetitive, to miss one of the buttons out. So it's worth going through and checking each one of them and just making sure they all work. Okay, so that's it for setting that up. What I would do now is I would go to templates, and I would save that template, giving a sensible name that you can find again. So I've called this one, it's this, because I've now got a Honeycomb yoke. I start them with HC, that's my current setup. It's the transponder for the 172 530 version, and I would click save. You would have to type it in there because I've already got that template there, but this would update that template, and click save. And so that's it really. So on to the next one. I'll see you in the next video.